Chinese diaspora working in film, I feel almost jealous. In the past few years, I have worked in a film distribution company, and we have brought many mainstream cinemas, Chinese cinema, into the UK, such as 800, 1921, The Battle of Lake Changjin. Those films have represented the great commercial success of Chinese cinema, but it doesn't represent the best of Chinese cinema in its artistic attributes. Last year, Yao and we initiated Chinese Cinema Season. It's an online showcase of Chinese language films. We screened over 50 films, feature films, and short films. But they had very limited influence because it's online. So now it's 2022, and we're able to go to cinemas like now. We would like to continue our mission of showcasing quality Chinese films by organizing regular screenings from new and underrepresented Chinese filmmakers, such as Qiu Zhongzhong. You should have received a questionnaire as well on your seat. Please do spend some time filling in the questionnaire. Tell us what you would like to see in the future, and we'll try our best to bring them to you. Today, we have invited Judy Harris to introduce the film. If you don't know her, Judy Harris is a film scholar and the founding editor of the film website My Dilerama. She has a PhD from Goldsmiths University. She's also author of one of the first books of film theory in 1915. Her research interests include the role of theatrical techniques and arts and crafts practice in silent film and beyond. Without further ado, let's welcome Judy Harris.
Thank you, Marie. Hi, thank you, everyone. I'm so excited to be here, to be about to watch this film. It's a really astonishing film, and I wasn't surprised that there's so much interest in it, and it's won awards, and that the screenings sold out so quickly, because it really calls into question what a film is allowed to look like and how a film can be made. And that's something I'm very interested in, film's relationship to other art forms and kind of art and craft techniques. And of course the director, Qiu Zhongzhong, is himself a painter and an illustrator, and this film is based on the life of his grandfather. It actually started out as a series of illustrations he did to accompany the biography that his own dad had written about his grandfather. So from the get-go, this film was imagined in relation to illustration and painting. And it's a really artisanal, handmade kind of film. I mean, it's obviously got a large budget and it's a piece of commercial cinema, but it has a really handmade feel, artisanal feel to it. They use kind of painterly stagings, painted matte backdrops. There's a scene where a piece of cloth, it's a really beautiful scene with a piece of cloth that's used to represent the sea. There's mats and models and all kinds of craft techniques. And when we see a film like this today, it's quite shocking, it's quite unorthodox to make a film like this. And it feels really original and refreshing. And it is. But actually, this mode of quite imaginative, intermedial filmmaking has its roots way back in the first days of cinema. With people like Georges Méliès, and hit films like Trip to the Moon from 1902. Méliès was, of course, a theatre director and a magician himself, so he used loads of stage techniques and painted mats and was very influenced by illustration. But this intermedial filmmaking style wasn't just allowed for magical, fantastical children's films like the kind Méliès was making. People like Ferdinand Zecker, Segundo Romand, Percy Stowe, lots and lots of silent filmmakers would use art and craft techniques in the making of their films. However, as film became less of a kind of folk practice, because of course it was shown first of all at vaudeville theatres alongside singing, ventriloquism and magic shows. So as film became an art form and was taken more seriously and kind of became elevated in status, these craft and theatrical and kind of folk practices fell out of fashion, and they were seen as embarrassing, anachronistic, and not really cinema. So a film like this is really pushing the boundaries of what a film is allowed to be. And in the 20s, when people celebrated film, it was celebrated as the art form of modernity, like the machine age is here. Here we have this mechanized art form, and it was things like editing, montage, jump cuts, slow motion, close-ups, all the kind of mechanical properties of what you could do in the camera and in post-production. That's real cinema, and there's a whole argument about the gendering of that distinction between kind of what the French New Wave would do and how that's celebrated, but if you use anything painterly or kind of craft in a film, that's kind of seen as a kind of feminized, childlike, naive, embarrassing way of making a film. But of course we know that arts and crafts have played a big role in cinema, including the use of painted backdrops in Hollywood films of the kind of 40s, 50s and 60s, and even in films like Titanic, where they used painted scenery alongside CGI because it was more realistic. There's obviously a tradition of puppet films that has continued, and the use of miniatures and models, claymation, stop motion, all these kinds of things like creature feature makeup. But these practices are usually relegated for children's films or science fiction. And here we have a director who is using such a wide range of techniques in the creation of a grown-up, serious, aesthetically ambitious film, and I find that really exciting. And it does remind me of something that was written in one of the first books ever written on film, called The Art of the Moving Picture, which was written by an American poet and illustrator and painter called Vachel Lindsay. And in 1915, he could see that there's a kind of a push for realism in film that was coming. Everything just had to be, you film the world kind of as it is. And he was really rejecting that, and he urged filmmakers to look to the fine arts, to painting, to illustration, to puppetry, marionettes, murals, mosaics. He said, take in the whole history of art and crafts and use that as your inspiration to make beautiful films. And I think finally Jean has achieved that, and I'm really excited to watch this film with you. So thank you so much, and thank you, Minnie, for putting it on.